Okay, so let's get underway. I'm just going to share the screen to give you an understanding of what we're up to. So lovely to be with you all again. Slightly delayed, but that was good. Thank you, Johnny. I'm glad. It was getting a little concerning there for a moment. But rightio. So Zane and I will be, in that sense, co-teaching, although we're dumping a lot to him. I'll go through a little bit more of the kind of the processes very soon, but we're just going to run through the ideas behind this. We'll go to the assessment, and then you'll be having time with Zane specifically to start to really workshop some ideas, be it here, be it the cafe. You know, it's the nice thing about the small numbers. That's my vote. I'm just saying. But that, did you see that nice smooth transition? Didn't even do that on purpose. That was good. So what we're doing is building on the skills that you did last year, but here in beautiful downtown Toowoomba. And so we will be starting to take all those foundational skills and now ramping it up quite a bit, so that you really get a lot more ownership of the program, really helping to drive it, as in specifically you're producing an episode and you're directing an episode. So no one passed out. That was good. Just slip that one in. But it will stretch you and demand a lot more of you, which is really what we want to be able to do. But that's more in you know, a good sense rather than a devastating kind of fearful sense. But we have these weeks prior to be able to build those skills to remind you of certain things and go from there. We are looking for you to be able to interact with, you know, the clients, as in the guests that you'll be working with, and interacting with the client, as in us, Zane particularly. So, you know, that's probably a little bit different as well. So it's going to give you that chance to really think about, how would I work with the client? What do I need to communicate? You know, just so you start to practice that, where it's not as scary as the real client.
Yeah, I think as long as you guys get each other as well, it's the more coordination. Yeah. You know, your timings and things right, not so much the shows necessarily, but how you actually go out and get some of these, you know, location stories, organize your studio guests, things like that. So there's a lot of just talking that has to happen between you, so you don't double up, step on each other's toes and stuff. So the more you guys talk, the smoother it should go.
And because this is a second year level, or where you're doing this as you are with a minor or major, second major, then this fits into that process. So, you know, it's a part of that. And I always like to sort of flag this one because, you know, you are in the real world. Sometimes that whole, although one university uses that as their marketing position, that this, what I'm talking about is that this being the real stuff that you're doing that you would do in the industry, and which, you know, we do all the way through the degree, be it in film or TV, but, you know, it's what we're always aiming to be able to do. So what we're going to be moving through, and today looking at the idea of developing an idea. You did a little bit of this with the Chamber of Commerce last year. I don't know about you, but it does my head in thinking, it feels like a year ago or something. I don't know, it feels like, but, you know, because we've had 4 months in between. So this sort of thing I'm talking about here is probably more general, if you like. So I get my brain into gear. An early start. Let me get over this one. So as you know, last time I was nagging you, but the audience is so very important for us to keep in mind. That's what we've always got to remember, is that that's who we serve. Now, that won't matter what we're doing, film, radio, TV, any really, you know, visual arts as well. We're always thinking about that client, the who we're dealing with. So we're always thinking about that. And then when we're thinking about the audience, how do we get to them? The distribution channel. Then what dollars do we actually have? Well, that's easy for us, none. So, which is usually the budget we all work on. And then the crew, ta-da, before me. And so that's all good as well. So, but in that process, in the industry stuff, yes, we'll be doing this. The budget becomes really important, obviously, because you can see what you've got to work with. That might be buying in particular performers, that kind of stuff, the type of crew, the type of gear. So, it's the kind of thing where in the industry, a director would sit down and talk through with the producer, looking at the actual bottom line, because that will mean I can have 2 jib arms and I can have 8 cameras, or I can have 4 cameras and 1 jib arm, or, a drone, depending on how desperate. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So it's recognizing, and yes, it's a good point, because sometimes people get carried away with the gear, thinking the more you've got, the better the show. Well, that's not always the case. So what we're doing is we're getting the idea developed, and that's what you're going to be thinking about today. Wasn't that rushing? Hey? Straight into it, it's onto it. But I'll come to what we're talking about. And also to remember that we're not always talking about a broadcast model, that we are talking about online delivery. That doesn't mean that broadcast isn't relevant, and I really want to be able to point that out, that I think sometimes we kind of discard it as if this new thing, or not so new thing, but the newer model of distribution is the only way. And there's a lot of benefits for that. I don't know about you, but I just find it really weird, because I have so many children around my life now as grandchildren, that I'm inflicted with Blippo and others, and may be unfamiliar to you unless you've got younger ones around your household as well. But, these are the people on YouTube that we would have hired back through my days as a presenter on a kids show. They would have made a reasonable bit of coin, but it wouldn't have been anything over the top. These are now talking in the $5 million, $8 million because of their YouTube sensations. And yeah, I have to say I struggle with that, because it's like the values of things are so disconnected from truth, or as we would say today, my truth, because that, I just think I really struggle with that, seeing that one person is worth that. Thank you. And it's recognizing that, it's an industry that you can't just work on fads. Does that make sense? Yeah. I don't know if it annoys you as well, but, when I say annoy, I'm not even sure what the right word is. It's just kind of disconnected. It's weird to me. Then maybe I'm just getting old. Yeah, yeah. I guess probably it's similar kind of annoyance, if I can use that word, that I have when you get a buffhead football player who turns up to be the anchor for a sports segment, or, on a news program. Yeah, when you guys, like people like you who have spent the money, done the formal training, know what it is to be a journalist, would absolutely give the proverbial away, to be there to get to do it. But because you've got this credibility, allegedly, this brings you over into that space. And it's that kind of disconnecting that it's an injustice, I guess, in my mind,
It's the same with radio stations hiring.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of that going on. Absolutely. And, it's good that we still have that quality, and the BAFTAs was on overnight. Kate Blanchett has done well again. No, I hadn't seen it, just heard the news updates on some of it, yeah. So our context that we're working on is in that sense client-driven, but I think that's a fairly regular context for you to work in, recognising that I've got one I'm going to talk about next up, but enough to say at the moment that what we're going to do for you is we'll give you a memo, a brief, which you've already got sitting up in study desk, and I'll show you where to find that. But in the listening, and remembering we did this last year, so I'm not going to labour this point, but just almost a reminder that when we're sitting in those meetings, and that's what you'll be doing with Zane today, to workshop a bit more about, this product called Artopia and asking those questions, it's what to listen out for. And you're listening for key words around, the desire of the client. What are they trying to achieve? So you're always really particularly listening for that. and any throwaway lines that they might give you. So it isn't always the obvious things, and it isn't always the overly said things. You know, when someone says, so everyone happy with that? And people sitting there going, yeah. But they're saying with their mouth, yes, but the body language changes, they turn themselves away, you know, and it's the yes is, you know, really enthusiastic. You know, I'm with it. Yeah, yeah. And I'm sure you've all been in groups with like that. You've known that situation. You know, I'm sure there'll be, yeah. I didn't want to say it, you know, but you know, we've talked about this before, trying to, you know, bloody mad is what I heard, you know. But anyway, so, you know, you've got to be listening for the interesting little cues that are in there, and also watching or kind of listening with your eyes in a way that you're seeing what it is. So you could say, so I'm not sure if you're overly, you know, happy about that, or what is it about that that bothers you? And try to get that out of the person, because there'll be something that's happened that you need to understand why it is. You know, you can be with people and they may have been with another agency prior, and they are not telling you what happened there, you know, and you're not looking for the dirt on them, but you're trying to understand that maybe what happened was that the agency didn't listen to them, that they gave them something they never asked for. Yeah, exactly. And that's really what it is always got to be about, is we've got to hear what are the needs and then try to address them. And in that process too, although I haven't noted it there, but it's recognizing that what we said earlier about the budget. Yes, I hear what you're saying. And you can't say to a client, particularly a commercial or a corporate video, well, you're being a complete tight ass, you know, so you're going to give me $1,000 and you want all this, seriously. But you find a nice way to say, we've got to work to the budget. And so I hear what you're saying, but this is what we could do. Now, that does come to the next point about creativity. And I don't think you can, with creativity, turn it on or off like a tap. I don't know about you, but as soon as you start moving into that creative mode, you want to be able to give your best to the work. Yeah, sometimes that can happen. Or as you hear the pipes gurgling and wondering, you know, it's all rusty. So leave the tap on for a while and it should pump through. But that is too often linked to what we call in radio the reactors and generators, where you'll have certain people in a group who are going to be always just ideas all the time. And then, you know, the people who are going to be sitting there being able to pick that up and run with it. So recognizing how you work and working your strength, you might be a much better, you know, for a different expression, a support person, not the ideas person. So that's okay. You know, we've made, you know, creativity such a commodity that if you aren't turning it out all the time, then something about you is not creative. Well, that's not true. You know, there's a creativity in you, but you may much prefer to take hold of creative ideas and really see them creatively come alive. Does that make sense?
That's more what I do. I would say, like, I'm not great at building it from the start,
yes,
but I'm great at helping shape it once it's getting going. So, you know, that's where I think you guys will benefit from me being on this, is you'll create and shape the idea, and I'll help you shape it to, you know, how it should go.
Yes, absolutely. So, okay, next graphic, please. I'm not used to having someone helping me out what's going on. So what I was mentioning before about your idea versus developing an idea for someone, what I mean by that is your idea, and that's usually probably more over in the film space where there's something that you particularly want to create as a short film, and that's about you, your idea, what you want to do. So you've got a lot of control over that. But in this sort of space that we're talking about, you're really doing the idea on behalf of someone else. So you've got to be able to really you know, accept that as a part of the process of creativity that I need. And that's why that point that I was making on the last slide around what is it they're really saying, so that in a way it becomes your idea, you know, that you're so connected to it that you truly understand it. And that's, so if it's for someone else and you keep that distance, you know, and physically looking like this, where you're kind of standing back and not owning it will not be as enjoyable as if I really join with saying that here's the idea and I'm joining with him to hear what he wants to achieve. And then for me, creatively interpreting that becomes a real joy. So that's the difference between them, is it's yours and there's nothing, this is not about good, bad. They're just different areas. Because in this one, your idea, you've got to then interpret that and make sure everyone else is on the same page with you. Now you're just reversing this. So what is it that that person's wanting? And you're bringing it back to make sure you're on that page of the other person, not yourself.
Likewise, always have, just like we have backup ideas as well, not just that one thing. Like, I think the key thing would be, don't come into any kind of conversation where you're just like, this is my one idea and that's what we've got to do. Like, you have to be flexible.
Yes.
So, you know, if they go, oh, well, you need to be able to read those cues as well, like Ashley was saying, with body signals and cues.
Yep.
If they look like they're starting to become disinterested, maybe you do need to change tack and, you know, go with a different idea or a different sort of way of explaining. So.
And on that point too, as a bit of a clue for it, because it is a good point, you'll see people that kind of will disconnect from the conversation. And it might even be a little bit of the, you know, and you can see they're kind of getting frustrated. That's usually where you get that sinking feeling in your gut, like I'm losing this client real fast. And so it's really a technique that we'd use in that kind of sales negotiation stuff would be, so can we just maybe stop for a minute and can I just recap? So as I understand it, you're needing this video for, or the idea of this TV show is to do. Is that right? Yep. And then this bit. And usually if you just slice it up and bring them through again, you'll then understand where they go, oh yeah, but see, that's the point. I don't think that, you know, we don't really want to get caught up on that bit. I really want to sell this bit. Oh, okay. Then all of a sudden they start becoming more engaged. And, you know, you can approach it in different ways. I think that's probably the healthiest way of doing it. Revisit, review, step it all through, see where you are, what's happening. It's a good technique, particularly even like with crew, because you might have someone who's thinking they know better, you know, which is often the case. You'll get that on a lot of shoots and situations, you know, so it's really, so you could come in and go, look, I'm the director, shut up and do it my way. That's one approach. The other one would be, okay, so what's happening here? And usually that's about sharing a vision to make sure that people understand what you're on about, what your picture is in your mind, and I want you to come with me for the ride. And that may be, do you have major production this year for you guys, or have you done that? Oh, that's right, this is the new thing. Yeah. So, you know, you probably take that into that as well. You need to really bring people with you. And that's part of leadership, is to really recognize, as the director or producer, you're going to have to lead that group and you need to get them on side. It is tricky when they're peers, and they can be hard, but you've got to push it as hard as you can.
Getting something out of someone without getting offside.
Yes. That's right.
Another thing, if it gets to the point where, like, sometimes you do have to just ask what the client doesn't want, just to see what, because they might have something sticking in their mind. And if you say, well, what is it that you don't want to see us do? You know, how do you not want it to be portrayed? And they might say exactly what you might have already said you do want to do, and then that's where you go, right. That's
fair, that point. Yeah. And I've certainly over my career, I've had that where the client is all excited about what they want, but they don't communicate it very well. And you're trying to guess the bit. And then because it's really perhaps, you know, very strongly visual, you'll go, oh, we could really, you know, show this part of the business. And they go, oh, yeah. And hang on, there's something not right here. So you keep pushing and you go, okay, so what? Oh, actually, I'm trying to play that side of the business down. We want to push that there. I mean, some of them will dive in and go, oh, no, leave that, mate. I don't even want to talk about that. We're going to talk about over here. Okay, oh, good, okay. And then you just note that. but also restate it for them. Now, whether that's in the meeting or even in writing. So here's what I understood, and then you keep yourself safe. I'm terrified to touch this board. I think this is the one that will slide away. Yeah, so I'm trying not to touch the board. I'm staying away far enough because I think it does. I think if I, no, yeah. So I wasn't going to do that before, but yeah, it's like a giant iPad. So how do you know who the audience is? Well, I don't know. Yes, we do. Just thought I'd get you a bit afraid if you thought I didn't know. Didn't worry them really. That's a shame. So how do you know who the audience is? Well, that's what we did last time. Remember, we go through the data, see, who is out there in the market. And that's a bit of what we're going to be doing. So there's a bit of revisiting what we did, but we're not labouring that stuff. We're cutting over into the real work. And how do you know what the elements are? Well, that's going to come through in your conversation a bit today, but definitely next week, where we start to really look at, and what do we mean by the elements? Well, all the things that are the glue holding the thing together. The show opener, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But these are the questions you've constantly got, the how, why, what, where, you're constantly looking at all that all the time. So,
and on that, remember that. Very clever. Ask those key questions.
How powerful is that? So the client is, here he is, UniSQ. Yeah, he is, yeah. Yeah, that's it. So we're in good shape, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, that's right. And what we're focusing on for the purpose of this, it's a community service for the market served by UniSQ School of Creative Arts. Now, that may sound a bit boring, but it's not in the sense of the way we're doing it. It's just to give it a context to say, well, who am I going to ask? And we're saying, well, we're talking about our school. So what to do? Well, we're going to work through that kind of client brief. So we'll do that in the tutorial time. And then think about some of the research, and you'll know what that means when we get to that bit. And we will have a bit of a chat here as well. Exploring other models, perhaps just taking a look at what is out there in the market that might be similar. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's really good kind of broader research. And then we will be preparing a short brief, which is the first assessment item, and I'll come to that very soon. So that's some of the things that we're going to be doing. But today we're beginning that conversation. And then this is our program. And the reason we're going with this as the established program, and we will be able to just get that changed to drop that out. But I didn't want to go mucking around it at all, because it's being able to say to you, here is the show that we did do last year. Why did we do it? That's some of what we'll talk about over coffee. Do I sound desperate? But Artopia was named by the students of last year. There's a definite, capacity for us to say, well, if you all said I absolutely hate it and we want to have a new brand, well, there's a few things we'd have to all commit to doing if we did that. The reason I'm sticking to it, or we're sticking to it, is that all the elements are done, essentially. And we thought, well, it saves all of that work trying to fit that in there, because it's not for assessment. You're not going to get anything for it, so it's a bit of an impulse to say, there you are. I'm hopeless in that area, so I can't really help you. But if you wanted to, and there were skills in the room to do it, or knock yourself out, absolutely. But that's the reason for doing it. It's not to limit what you're doing. But the important thing to remember is this is what they did last year. And just as last year is dead and gone, and but a memory for us, that this is the new year, and it's what do we make that show? Because keeping in mind, it's just that. It's a name, it's a logo. It doesn't really mean anything to anyone else. It's what it will be meaning to the community because of what you do. So you bring that in, like any brand. It is literally that. You could put up the Qantas logo here and it will all mean something to different people, or, Macca's put that logo up, and people would be able to rattle off all the things that it means to you. Maybe clothing brands, could be cinema chain, it could be anything and everything that you want to think about. Those brands only have value and meaning because of what you attribute to them.
Yeah, like I just changed all the Phoenix radio station.
Yes.
And it went from meaning very little to me personally to meaning a lot. And I know I'm on the program, but the music now represents, I guess, the students in a way. Like it's actually more representative of what you guys would be rather than something that you might hear on like a triple Z station at 3 o'clock in the morning kind of thing. That's
Except it was at 9 a.m. That's why I go grey.
I think it'll mean something to the students moving forward.
Yes, absolutely.
Really sink their teeth into this year.
So in that sense, it's an established show, but it's 1 year old. Now, in the nasty reality of our business, if that didn't rate well, it'd be gone. I mean, that's the nature of it. But, we're not dealing with that, but we are saying, well, it took on a meaning, and we'll show you what that meant down a bit later on this morning. But the formula had been developed, and I'll show you that in a moment. This is, in my mind, it's about expanding the show, and expanding may be bumping everything that was inside that shell to become something different. But the overarching principle of the show, which was about representing all things art, if you like. So it was a full broad expression of creative expression, artistic expression. And it was just a way to encapsulate anything from filmmaking to, pottery, all that, and painting through to singers. It was the whole gamut. And that was having performers in the studio. It was having, artists turning up with their work, blah, 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 So it's all of that, but it can become a bit more niche. It could stay something similar. So expanding the show is actually expanding the original idea. What could we do with this thing? And part of those conversations would be that I thought we did okay, but I didn't think it was absolutely amazing, but it was good. It was, you wouldn't say it was a terrible show, and I wouldn't walk away feeling like I never want to see that thing ever again. It wasn't anything like that, but it had places to go that it never got to.
Some of the stronger episodes were those that sort of tried to tie in something thematically, like they really got that in that episode. So when you would see something tie in, not just like, I'm not talking about, this is all about, say, pottery making the whole episode, but like where they were able to tie in something in the community the whole way through.
Yes.
Like there was a feel that was consistent about, rather than just like, I picked two things and this other third thing, and I kind of just smushed them together. Like, when you're, and we'll talk about it more later, when we're talking about producing especially, but trying to find ideas that you can sort of segue through and connect to tell that story throughout the program, rather than just like, well, that place is available between this time and this time, so we might be able to use them kind of.
Yes,
thing.
yes.
Like really,
and there was a couple of times where it was just people who were on campus. Not too often, but that happened, and that was just kind of lazy, easy stuff to grab. Most people went to the effort to find people who come in. So what we're going to be considering then is to think about the 2022 version. Look at that purely as information to say, here's what it looked like. So we can, we'll have a look at the show rundown and some of that kind of stuff. But the 2022 version simply had hosts in one part of the studio where they did a quick show rundown. And from that, they said, just welcome, this is Artopia, however the tagline was, went to the little, I think it was only about 10 seconds, wasn't it? The opening, it wasn't. Went to that, so there were two hosts. The other host was at the desk, and you have the first guest in, ready to go. Then we went over to that. Then they threw to a package story, I think it was, back to studio, and either a live performer, that kind of stuff. Yeah, the what's on stuff. And so it went on down through there to goodbye to the show. So that was the way they did it. You might say, we just want to go straight from the show opener into it. You might say you want to do something outdoors to do the opener. I mean, you'd have to have reasons for why we do it, but that's what it boiled down to. I don't think no, I didn't. So that was the kind of deal that we ran with. So I think we'll just go through any questions.
In the tutorial or workshop, as they call it,
Just through this for the assessment stuff, and then we'll just know where we're heading for that. There's nothing terribly scary. The study desk routine, so we've got all that there, something for the dartboard, and then we've got, so we think of everything, If you'd like a larger copy, just email me and send it to you. So then you've got this week, meaning that you look at that to prepare for the week coming up. Course material, when you click on that, it'll have the recording from today, any other additional paperwork. So that'll just be kept fresh week after week. So the really exciting stuff though, sorry, you're seeing it in the ugly lecture review, so nothing looks cohesive. So then with our changes, you've got all these different names and things, so don't freak out about it. I've tried to interpret that down here, but that's the listing. You'll see the dual offerings, they come up for a Toowoomba offer and a Springfield offer. That's all fine. That's your extension request, remembering that's the only way to get extensions now is through there. Apparently they have now launched that you can request a 3-day without having to show, anything. So,
So use that, like, if you need to.
But just not when you've got the show recording.
Like the reflection.
Yes, yeah. So you've got the planning document. It is the 13th of March, but it's really simple. It's a 1-page. You're going to be pretty much knocking out a lot of that today, just so it's done. But we want to make it up early so we've got a clear plan. We know where we're heading. It's done. There's plenty. We'll talk more next week with demonstrations, what we're looking for out of that. So you've got in here, that's where you're going to upload. So if each one will have that, and then the marking rubric and the information on that, and I'll come back to that in a minute. Practical 1 is aimed at your location story, and everything required is in there. Practical 3 is assignment 3, sorry, practical 2. This is why I'm saying it's just follow the line. So assessment 1, 2, and 3. Assessment 3 is the end, the actual finished product, both producing and directing. And so that's a cumulative thing. And then the reflection document as per usual for your observation around your skill. And I don't mean to say that like it's offhand, like it doesn't matter. What I'm trying to do with that one is actually make it matter so that you're able to really stop and think about what did you really discover about you and your work as a producer. And it may be that I didn't realize that I was really so aligned to wanting to be a producer, and that really surprised me and I enjoyed it, blah, 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 and here's why. Or I thought I was really going to be a producer, or I wanted to give it a go and it's definitely not for me, and here's why it doesn't sit with me. It's about being able for us to see what you've actually learned out of the whole process, and equally the same sort of thing for directing. It may be a revelation to you. It may just be a confirmation to you where it's, no, this is not for me, or it is definitely for me, and this has proven it. And what I really found was blah, blah, blah. And it can be a little bit more personal, because a lot of younger people really struggle with picking up the phone and making bookings. And it may be that you push past that pain point and did that and then found out it wasn't so bad, or that I felt really terrified. And the reason for it is not trying to get self-disclosure for a negative reason, but just more about being able to help you so that if we can see it's a real issue. We'll know that before a reflective journal because you'll be talking to us. But, but I do want things that may become really sticky for you, to talk to us about that so we can look at ways or give you options about how to manage that. Just not doing it's not really the best option. So with regard, the first thing, it was always just purely designed as a group, both in the reflection of who you are as individuals and how you work as a group. We didn't need that. So I changed it this year to be a group individual one. Group in the sense that what you're going to be doing now with Zane, and I'll be popping in and out, but that one's really more about, you know, seeing how that worked and how did you use the group dynamics to help build your program. But the individual stuff will be your individual creative approach to your edition of the show.
Previously, the way that it was done, just so you get an idea, is that we put a group of people together, say 3 or 4 students together, and then they would have to talk amongst themselves, and then they basically created one document pitch, and they each worked on different sections. Whereas instead of doing that this time, because it's like a smaller group, we're just saying you guys talk collaboratively amongst yourselves about what you think works, and then from there you do your own individual pitch based on what we talked about. So it's it's the same, but like more straightforward, and you know, that way you guys will be able to just actually.
Well, exactly, and we just thought it was going to be an unnecessary part of the learning process because you already work as a group. So there was no benefit in that. It would just make it awkward, to be honest. So, and where it comes in is this bit, you work as a creative group to consider the overall aim of the show, and there you can brainstorm. So the first bit is the really important part, that you get full agreement that as a group, this is what Artopia is going to look like. Yes, and then you say, right, yeah, exactly. So yep. So do you do visual art? No. Now, when you said that, I wasn't sure whether you did or not. No. Yeah. But just say, for example, that was the case. Jonty might be wanting to bring a band in and all music oriented. You might then say, I want to have the visual arts bit. And so it would be like that around the room. Not, you know, and there's nothing wrong at this point if it's something that really connects with you, because it's about you being able to produce and direct. It can't be, well, it shouldn't be just necessarily something that's just easy, but it might be that you are really genuinely passionate about, say, the music scene in Toowoomba, and you'd love to help promote that, you know, and that's part of some of the discussion about what is it that we actually want to do with Artopia? How do we actually use this thing to get it out into the market? Because a part of what I want to be able to do for you is, once we hear that, if, for example, we could say to the council, you know, you put this through your website as well, and we can put it up on our services here, get our communication people to market it. So this is not going to sit in a back room somewhere that no one sees. We do want to get the product out there. So we wanted to have a real focus about Artopia Toowoomba. What is lacking in the place? What's the disconnects? What could we really help promote? You know, so we know coming up, typically, I think it's yearly, we're Curious, is it Curious Festival, is that right? Yes. Now, I'm hoping that's a yearly thing, but if that's the case, it is yearly, then we'd be saying, well, let's talk to Ruth. What has she got planned? And will that fit? Now, maybe it goes too early in the year, in which case you say no. Or would they give you a location story, meeting some of these artists, but, you know, we don't worry about that. But you might say, we'd like to have her in as a guest. Why do this festival every year, you know? So we'll be looking at that kind of stuff, if that's what you agree is needed and warranted in the community. But that is what you're going to be doing. So your creative group, in your introduction, you're going to be, each of you will have basically the same intro where you're going to be identifying what is the aim of the show. So it'll be all mapped out. That's how that's going to work. And then after that, it'll come down to the demographic scan, that kind of stuff that you're doing. And and then you're rattling through to, and this is for TV. I'm just making sure you're in the right room. This is 414A, but this is a TV class. I'm wondering if something's moved. What subject was it for? Okay, so yeah, so then that's the listing there that you'll go through. The real creative idea stuff, how you're going to interpret it, what you're going to be doing, and a basic sort of rundown on the program will be what you're doing for this first thing. So that's all there captured in that document.
It's just part of the process. You'll always find the sort of stuff you do this. So there's nothing else to get. It'll be quicker to do this time, less sort of a struggle to get around.
And don't feel like you have to rush the doctor to get another Serapac script. If you go up to 2,000 words or it's 1,000 and 1,200 words, it's fine. This is just, that's just an indicator of, I'm imagining it's probably going to take you at least 1.5 pages to 2 pages to communicate that. That's, so whatever is effective communication, as I always say, if it fits on the back of a postage stamp, it's probably not well written, but and not with a great deal of thought. Yeah, so that's that routine. And then, as you know, as always, down the bottom is the rubric, and that's what we're looking for, how you've understood all of that. So, and I don't know how many times we go into these blasted documents and you think you delete everything, and as soon as you go into it, you see, I didn't do that, sorry. It won't be as pretty as it should have been. There'll be someone in the system who'll smack me around for that. Okay, let me just, so that brings us to the end of that. And